Hey fans, friends, and each and every one of you, welcome back to the channel. It's Monday, that means it's countdown day. All of the votes have been tallied, counted, a mass brought together. It's also Thanksgiving as of this recording here in Canada. So to all of our Canadian friends, happy Thanksgiving. This is going to be an interesting one. It is a topic that was suggested some time ago by our buddy Blue Raccoon. It is the top 10 bikes in Transformers. That means Transformers characters who turn into bikes and or motorcycles. It was an interesting list that pulled from all corners of the fandom. I wasn't even sure that there were 10 characters that turned into bikes, but the fans never cease to amaze me with the characters that they come up with. Some that I've never even heard of, some that I absolutely just forgot about. It's an interesting one, so stick around because bikes, that's going to be our topic in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey one, hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, light them up, baby. And hit that notification bell. It helps me out a ton. It lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links, all of that, man, down in the description below, as well in the description below. And if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course, hit the join button right here on YouTube to become a channel member, baby. And this is the top 10 Transformers who are bikes / motorcycles. I'm not gonna lie, most of this was motorcycles. A couple weren't with the way the votes went, but the majority naturally were motorcycle inclined. Naturally, we're gonna start off with the honorable mentions first, and we have 4 of them this time. Notably, Energon RC, Cybertron Lugnuts, Highwire, who I believe is more bicycle, the Minicon who's a bicycle. I don't think Highwire's, I think he's a pedal bike, right? I don't think he's a motorcycle or a scooter or anything like that. And Mohawk. As well, I'm going to mention these because a couple of people tried to vote for them, but they're not Transformers. There were votes that came in for the GotBot Cycle, as well as Scooter, as well as, I can't remember which one it was, but one vote came in for one of the Super GotBots. Now, some people will argue and say, yeah, but when, you know, the license for GotBots was acquired, they became part of the Transformers universe, and it's part of the multiverse, and blah, 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 blah. Yes, I know. I know all of that. I know all of that as well as anybody else. But we all know that by rights, they are of the GotBots franchise, and that's where they, you know, kind of began their existence. So they didn't really count because they weren't actual Transformers. They were kind of like adopted Transformers after the buyout of, I think it was Tonka. And even with that, Hasbro didn't get the rights to do everything. That's why we haven't had, like, you know, updates and plastic of these guys, because those rights are held by, I can't remember which company it is, but a company in Japan. I've looked into who owns what rights. The fiction is owned by one. The rights to make the characters is owned by another, and that's why we kind of have GotBots left in limbo, and why I didn't include them on this list. Nevertheless, while I think it's kind of neat that some people pointed out GotBots, and while I couldn't count them, I think that they were at least worth mentioning as part of the honorable mentions, so to speak. Anyway, none of those made the actual list, so who did? You know what we're gonna do, baby. Kick things off with number 10 first. Number 10, it takes us to Robots in Disguise 2015 and the Cybertronian futuristic purpley chopper type of motorcycle being the Decepticon bounty hunter Fracture. He is despicable. He is not, above doing the most dastardly of deeds, but when he gets in his alt mode, he's one of the coolest looking bikes around, and probably one of the fastest. I like his look. I think it's absolutely a unique mode, and he had an excellent transformation scheme. Fracture takes the number 10 slot. Number 9 takes us to the Unicron trilogy, and while the bike mode of this character is terrific, I'm not gonna lie, I've always found the robot mode to be somewhat gangly, but I can't deny that a lot of people voted for Cybertron Ransack. Probably one of the most generic sounding names that there's ever been. He kind of leads the, I don't want to say leads, but he kind of leads the charge for the Decepticons on, I think, Speed Planet, and he has like a crush on Override, but he's not very smart himself. It's just he surrounds himself with even less intelligent Decepticons. He has like a stand-up comedy act. Like, he's such a weird character. And while he has a generic name and a cool-looking bike mode and an odd-looking robot mode, it's undeniable that he is one of the most involved, interesting characters in all of Transformers. And because he happens to turn into a motorcycle, he fits right in here, and that's why he took the number 9 slot. Number 8 brings us to kind of a mix of things, but I'm going to sort of explain as we go through. Number 8 is Chromia. And Chromia is so weird. You'll notice I used the Generations Chromia because she did turn into a futuristic Cybertronian type of motorcycle, which, by the way, isn't her actual alt mode, but whatever. Some votes came in for other versions of her as well, like the movie version, but while I sort of mixed those votes together, the vast majority that came in said Generations Chromia from, I think it was 2013, and I can't deny it. You know what? Great character, an excellent marksman, and very brave, one of the bravest of the Autobots. And I've always seen Chromia as sort of like the female version of Ironhide, strangely enough. And yeah, she was given a motorcycle mode, fits right in, can't argue the fact, and she took the number 8 slot. I hoped that number 7 was going to get higher. When I kind of posed this question, number 7 was one of the first characters that came to mind, and it is the late, great animated Prowl. Prowl was absolutely terrific. I really, really enjoyed his characterization. I liked his development. I liked the depth of his character. He did have a cool alt mode. I didn't need the sidecar thing, but you know what? It took the character of Prowl, and instead of just being like a remake and a rehash of the G1, which we sometimes get, and I have at times lumped votes together because of that, this was a completely unique take on the character, unique enough that he deserved his own votes, he deserved his own recognition, and he got it right here at the number 7 mark. Coming in at number 6 is one of my personal favorites, one that, next to Prowl, was, again, one of the first names that came to my mind. Not necessarily one of the most memorable characters with any kind of, like, deep characterization. However, one of the coolest and most, outstanding type of alt modes when it comes to bikes. It is definitely Cybertronian, and as a lad, I didn't really know what to call it per se. I'm talking about Technobot Afterburner. And I never really understood why Afterburner was called Afterburner, because he didn't seem to fly, and I always thought of Afterburner as, like, you know, rockets, right? So I always figured that the name would match somebody who flew better, and I knew he was on tires and wheels. I knew that they were too, but he didn't really look like a motorcycle per se. Enter the Combiner Wars version of the guy, or Unite Warriors version, whatever you want to say, which is quite obviously a motorcycle. Cybertronian probably in nature and stylized, but definitely a motorcycle. I was very happy to kind of see that, yeah, you know what, they've altered his body just enough that now you can kind of definitively say that he is a motorcycle. I guess he always was, whether I realized it or not. Anyway, cut it. One of my favorite characters. The orange is absolutely eye-popping. Absolutely glad he made the list. And he takes the number 6 slot. Ah, here we are once again at my most favorite of places. The most coveted of locations. Yeah, you know it. It is the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we go once again to the Unicron trilogy and someone who hails from Planet X. I'm talking about the cunning, the devious, the deceptive Sideways, the harbinger of Unicron. And Sideways is one of those characters that every time you saw him, you knew it was going to be big trouble, because it really kind of heralded Unicron. Naturally. And he couldn't be trusted. Couldn't be trusted with Autobots, couldn't be trusted with Decepticons, couldn't be trusted with anybody. His one motivation was Unicron. That's it. In terms of his plastic iteration, I thought that the yellow and purple played off each other terrifically. I love the color scheme. I love the bike mode. The robot mode is pretty good, but I always wished that the arms maybe were a little bit longer, or that the torso could collapse just a little bit more so he would seem more muscular. Great character. One that even though he's been revisioned in different ways through the movies and whatnot, every time I hear Sideways, I immediately think Unicron. That's the lasting impression. It just so happens that he was cool enough to have a motorcycle mode at a time when motorcycles weren't a common alt mode, and that alone makes him stand out, and it helped him to take the number 5 slot. And just as I'm happy that we had one of the Technobots on the countdown, coming in at number 4 is another one that I'm happy is on the list. I think it was almost a foregone conclusion that this character had to be on the list, except this time it's one of the Protectobots. It's Groove. And Groove, I mean, quintessential motorcycle. It's a police motorcycle. That's what he turns into. That's what he's always turned into. Whether you see him as a full-fledged, full-sized member and a leg of defense, or whether you see him as a chess piece like he was in Combiner Wars, either way you cut it, Groove is a cool police motorcycle. And honestly, I always sort of liked his character, even though we didn't see it a whole lot. But I think one of the things that spoke to me is, as a lad, I thought that police motorcycles were really cool. Thanks, Chips. That's where I got that from. If you know the show, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know the show, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But that kind of gave me a little bit of a love affair when I was young with police motorcycles, that show. And then when Groove was a police motorcycle, I was like, yeah, that's my boy. I'm glad that other people felt the same way. And he was able to take the number 4 slot. And now we're into the top 3. And at number 3, we go back to Transformers Animated and the unlikely entrant of Oil Slick. I totally forgot about this character. If you know him, cool. If you don't, cool. I always thought he looked a lot like Lockdown. He is a Decepticon, and he is known for trying to take out Autobots while they're in their vehicular mode, but he's also kind of a chemist, which I think is interesting because where Animated is, I'm going to say, somewhat recent. Certainly when you compare it to Unicron Trilogy or RID, the original RID, or, for example, the original Transformers, the G1. This is more modern. And I think that that's interesting because not only does he try and take out his opponents, we'll say, while they're in vehicle mode, but he's also a chemist and comes up with a lot of chemical warfare kind of things, such as cosmic rust. Very interesting character. He's also vain because he wears this dome to kind of cover his pretty face. But undoubtedly, really cool looking, again, sort of like Fracture. He's kind of a chopper motorcycle, cool motorcycle, menacing robot that looks more monstrous than anything else. Oil Slick even has a cool name. Everything about this guy kind of screams threatening and classy all at the same time, and that's why he took, I believe, the number 3 slot. And here we are at number 2, and for a long time, number 2 and number 1 were going neck and neck. Front tire to front tire, if you will. At number 2, we have one that I thought was going to be number 1 in Wreck-Gar. Any votes that came in for Wreck-Gar, I put together as kind of one whole thing. Because some people voted for the RTS, some people voted for the Studio Series 86. I even had one vote for the Power of the Primes iteration. A lot of the Junkions had a few votes each, but Wreck-Gar far and above. One of the most recognizable, if not arguably the most recognizable, of all Transformers motorcycles. I thought he was going to take number 1, but he didn't quite get there. He lost by about 5 or 6 votes. Made a super strong showing, easily took the number 2 slot. So if he was number 2, then who was number 1? Number 1 might be a foregone conclusion to a lot of people. I thought it was going to be Wreck-Gar, but it wasn't. It was, surprisingly to me, maybe not to you, Transformers Prime RC. And RC is a tremendous motorcycle, but also a tremendous character. Some people complain about her character and say that she was whiny and stuff. I don't think she was. I think she had difficulty trusting because she had felt betrayed in the past. She had felt hurt in the past by losing people that she got close to as her partner. She didn't want that again. She just shut down her spark, shut down her heart, so to speak. And it was nice, I think, through Transformers Prime to see the evolution of her character as she grew to really kind of trust and care for, who was it? Jack, I think, was her partner. And I liked seeing that character development. It wasn't for everybody, but it was for me. I thought it was well done. And I thought that her kind of speed bike type of alt mode, I want to say it reminds me a lot of like a Ninja, but I don't know a lot about motorcycles, to be honest with you. She was definitely built for speed, both in her robot mode and her motorcycle mode. And perhaps one of the Best spotlights, highlights for her character was the episode where it really focuses on her, Jack, and Arachnid. Tremendous character, tremendous offering, tremendous motorcycle, and that's why RC took the #1 slot. There you have it. We've gone from 10 down to 1 once again, everybody. I thought Wreck-Gar was going to take #1, but I'm okay with RC taking it. I figured the top 2 was probably going to be those two. There are some that I thought would be, you know, elsewhere in the list, and they weren't. Sort of surprised me where people fell, where characters fell. We also had votes come in for Bay Alita 1. Bay vs. Alita 1, I should say. We had votes come in for Flame War. We had votes come in for Brimstone. Who else did we have votes come in for here? Nancy, Junkeep. So some of the Junkions had votes that you know, kind of make sense. Rust Dust had a couple of votes from the Torchbearers, I think is the name of the group, or the Rust Renegades, if you will. And Road Pig had one. Who knew? So there you go. There's some of the other ones that had votes. It was an interesting round this time. Let me know where your favorites fell. I appreciate you guys coming by. Give me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course hit the join button right here on YouTube, baby. Become a channel member. While you're at it, hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us here on the channel. Don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single solitary day, you right there, you do make difference. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres, or the old fashioned way, baby, right here inside the videos.